You're listening to Reignite, a podcast about standing up for your friends. I'm MJ.
And I'm Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
And our guest today is friend of the pod, Jeff Richardson of the Shattered Worlds podcast. Yay, thanks, Jeff.
Hey, guys, what's up?
Hooray. Welcome to the show, Jeff. We're happy to have you.
I'm
It's
so
been a
excited.
long time in the making.
Yeah, I've been
sure.
a huge fan of the show ever since early in the whatever. I don't know when I started listening, but early on, I've always
A while ago.
appreciated y'all's take, and I really enjoy getting to hear how other people play this game. You learn about a lot about people on how they play this kind of game. So I feel like I know you guys a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's something that playing this game and doing this podcast has taught me, is how differently and how similarly people play these games depending on their choices, their backgrounds, all sorts of stuff. It's actually really fascinating.
So, Jeff, why don't you talk about your projects and your work?
Okay. So my first podcast I started in 2014. It's called Everything is Awesome, and that's like an arts issues kind of deal. I'd have a guest on. For a long time I'd have guest hosts or like co-hosts. But the latest one was my girlfriend, and it went really well until it didn't. So I've been kind of floating with that one. And then during that process, I ended up starting a couple actual play pods. Shattered Worlds RPG, which is based on a game and a fantasy world I created. It's got space and zombies and guns and stuff. And then the other one is set in the world of Stephen King's Dark Tower, and it's called The War for the Tower. And that one's much more tightly edited and literary and stuff. Turns out it's a lot harder to put out episodes of something where you like edit really tightly. Usually I'm just used to like bullshitting and cracking goofs and stuff.
Yeah, I wouldn't know anything about that. This podcast is never a chore to edit.
And then I recently started with some people who I met through Shattered Worlds. We started Sinister Parent Company, which is a new podcast network, and I'm on a few shows over there too. Something Wonderful Right Away and Good Idea. So yeah, I do a lot of stuff.
You are amongst your people.
Yeah, hell yeah. I mean, I met you guys on a podcasters Facebook group, so.
Well, me at least.
Yes.
I lurk
not that
through MJ. Well, it's fine. I lurk in other Facebook groups. I do plenty of my own connection making elsewhere.
Cool.
Okay.
Well, Jeff, all of that stuff sounds awesome, and maybe at the end of the show we'll have you plug exactly where the best place is for people to go to find all of this. I assume either your
Maybe
Twitter
he
or
says,
your
like, we're
Facebook.
not going to actually have you do that, and it's not in the outline.
Shush. MJ.
Yeah, I have a website and another one for War for the Tower. So yeah, there's things
Nice.
I can add.
Excellent. But we like to start by talking with a guest who's never been on the show before about what their history is with Mass Effect and what Mass Effect means to you. So, like, when did you first get into the game? Were you an early adopter, or did you find it late? And kind of how has it affected your life since you've played it?
Okay, so I've listened to all your eps, so like I've heard everyone else's. I feel like mine is weird. So I started with the first. I had a Xbox, I think, and I loved that game, and I played it all different ways you can play it, which isn't many, like early on. And then I got Mass Effect 2, and my girlfriend at the time, ex-wife, after that, she liked playing video games, but more cooperatively. So she really liked watching me play it, and then telling me what to do, like for the behavior choices. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't until all that kind of blew up that I got to like really play it my way every time. And so when I went back to Mass Effect 2 later, and then again this most recent time, it feels like totally different parts of my life, let alone different aspects of my character or whatever. So for Mass Effect 2, it was my favorite game. It's probably still my favorite game. I bought it recently so I could like remember all this stuff for when I'm on the show. And honestly, I don't think I changed my choices that much. But it'll be interesting to talk about why and what that means and stuff. So, as for what Mass Effect means to me, I mean, I think it was the first game where I felt like I could really identify with the character. You know, it wasn't just like, oh, I'm the Tomb Raider lady or whatever. It was like you get to make real choices. It reminded me some of the old text-based games or like Zork or whatever, but none of those games let you customize your experience. And so I think getting to be a hero, you know, getting to like be a good guy and like do law enforcement stuff or whatever, it's kind of like playing out a thing that I do a lot in D&D, which is, you know, in regular life, I'm just a mailman, you know, I'm just a writer or whatever, like, and through Mass Effect, I get to have a visible impact on the world around me, you know, and part of that is just walking around talking to people. You know, I'm way more social in Mass Effect than in my real life.
So say we all, honestly.
Yeah, I think that is definitely a truth for everyone who plays it. And like, it's funny you talk about the power fantasy, and that's a big part of it, right? Like maybe not absolute power, but this idea that you have real tangible power to make a change. And even after you've played the game more than once, you know how you can make a change. And so whereas in life, sometimes you might feel stuck or that you can't make changes that you want to, in this game, you have the resources, right? You have the ability to do those things. Yeah.
And also it's not me, right? Like, you know, I always like the big, powerful guys like the Incredible Hulk or the Thing or even like Captain America. Like I was bullied. I'm a little, you know, 5'6" or whatever. Like, so to live vicariously through this tall, giant shepherd, you know, blasting aliens, like it's, for me, it's more than a power fantasy. It's what would I do if I had power? You know, would I do it right? And would I make the world a better place and stuff like that, you know? Stuff I try to do in my life, but there's no stats, you know? Right. You never get.
We don't have a Paragon choice. Yeah.
Right. So in this game, I just jack up those Paragon points. I get as many as I can.
Yeah, if only when we were having conversations in real life, the conversation would appear in front of us with like colored text, so we'd know what choice.
God, that would make my life so easy.
Yeah, don't you feel like you make renegade choices all the time just because like you're a little hungry or tired or like angry at something else? You know,
I am definitely more renegade when I am hungry.
Yeah, same. The hanger renegade is a real thing.
More likely to let the Arachnite Queen die when I haven't had food in several hours. Fuck it, I don't care. Get me a pizza.
What have you done for me lately, Arachnite Queen?
Yeah. Well, that's a good place to segue. We always like to ask, as you know, first-time guests what their major choices were in the first game, if they're joining us for the second game. So going through the list, of course, let's start with the just aforementioned Arachnite Queen. In your ideal playthrough, did she die or did you let her live?
Oh, gotta let her live. I mean,
yeah.
I'm like the Doctor and Jean-Luc Picard, you know, like I need to let life flourish and then make peace with it. So that was an easy choice.
What about when dealing with Rex? Did he survive or did you have to kill him?
I work Rex every way I can because I want him to be my best friend for life. So I never gave Rex cause to die. I would not allow it.
That's good.
That is good.
Who did you leave on Vermeer?
So this is embarrassing. I can't stand Ashley. She's a racist. She's terrible. But when I first played this game, I was 20 or something, and she's hot. So, like, of course. Sorry, Caden. You were kind of a wet blanket. You're gone.
I mean, look, you've been listening. Like, my honest reaction to Caden now as an adult who has, like, an idea of standards and taste is very different than my idea of Caden as a young hormonal boy. So I get it. Like, it's legit. Who's your, speaking of Ashley and Caden though, who was your ideal love interest in the first game?
So here again, this is the one thing that I think evolves for most people. You know, I flirted with Ashley. I wasn't really into Liara, but Tali, every time, no matter which game, I'm just in love with Tali. That's it. Like for Mary with Garrus, like, you know, she's my space girlfriend. There you go.
All right.
I feel that.
What about those lovable council members?
So this was purely like a Paragon choice. You know, the people elected these folks. You know, they're important. Like, governments have collapsed because, you know, too many people in government got killed. Like, can't allow that. So I let them live.
And who wound up in the human council seat?
Okay, so I was just listening to Matt tell his story again, and it's exactly the same. Like, I respect democracy, and I can't stand in the way of the people's choices. You know, it's completely undemocratic to give one guy the choice. But it works out too.
You stood idly by.
It works out too because Anderson is like my space dad. And so I'm not going to give him this really hard job where he has to like do stuff I won't like. I want him to be, you know, around and cool. And also the people elected Udina. So, you know.
Right. Yeah. Well,
Udina's the worst.
I mean,
he really is.
Definitely
he
true,
really
but
is.
it is what it is. I'm going to go out on a limb and assume you fall more along the Paragon track like me and MJ. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I figured. There are a lot more of us, I find.
Even when I've tried to do renegade-y things on this or Fallout or whatever, like, I just can't sustain it.
Yeah. No, it's the same. Like, my Renegade playthroughs in Mass Effect were me sitting there going, I'm going to take the Renegade option. It wasn't me naturally choosing it. It was me deciding to see that path. So I totally get it. You are in good company there.
You know what? This is what YouTube videos are for, okay?
Yeah, right, exactly.
I don't need to make my friends cry. I can watch other people do it.
Alrighty. Well, I think this is a good point, MJ, for us to get into exactly why we're here today and give us a little summary of what today's mission is.
You're very gung-ho today. I don't know how I feel about it.
I like this. I like this hot, fun Matt energy.
I'm putting that on a t-shirt.
Hot, fun Matt energy.
Yeah, sure, why not?
If only I could channel it all the time. Anyway. Summary. Tali must return to the flotilla to answer the charges made against her. When the squad arrives, Tali finds out she's been stripped of her ship name, an act that is as good as declaring her exiled before the trial even begins. The Admiralty Board lays into Tali, accusing her of sending active Geth back to the flotilla. Among the accusations, it is revealed that her father's ship has been taken and he's likely dead. Tali insists that they must take back the Alarai and find out what happened to her father, providing them with an opportunity to collect evidence of Tali's innocence. Once aboard the Alarai, the truth is revealed. Rael Zora had Tali send inactive and stripped down components to him, but then he and his team would activate and network them so they could test weapons on the Geth. Tali begs Shepard not to reveal this information, and not to stain Rael's memory to the Quarian people. Shepard must decide how to get Tali out of this situation.
So, before we actually dive deeper into this mission, Jeff, why is this mission important? Why did you want to do this mission? I think I have an inkling based on what you just previously said. But
this is
but
all
spell
I
out for us a little
wanted.
bit.
I mean, ever since I met Tali, like all I wanted to do was to make her life better, to help her do whatever she's got to do. Like she's like the woman of my dreams. I'll stand up for her and fight. And, you know, if she wants me to hide stuff, you know, as long as it's not too immoral to do so, I'm gonna hide it, you know? Like I like helping out my friends, and I like when friends help each other, because then afterwards they get to like talk about it and like, I don't know, work stuff out emotionally, and it really bonds you to people better. Some of the loyalty missions to me feel like occasionally, sometimes, especially with the extra characters, like a little perfunctory or a little like, why would I want to do this? But this one just, you know, it's the kind of thing I like to do in real life, like help somebody deal with their, whatever their troubles are.
That's a really good point.
You know, a lot of times it's mental health stuff, anxiety, but, you know, sometimes it's been abuse. It's like a power fantasy for the heart, I guess.
No, Jeff raises a really good point. I mean, some of these loyalty missions we go on them because we have to, and it feels like an obligation. Whereas helping Tali, helping Garrus, these are things that I feel that we're compelled to do because we've already bonded with these characters. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, for sure.
That feels so much more like my friend needs me than, say, Jacob saying, my father might not be dead. Please come help me with this.
Oh, Jacob.
Oh, Jacob.
Well, yeah, and I think that this mission specifically gives me the kind of content, God, I hate that word, gives me the kind of content that I want from a loyalty mission, right? There's an equal parts story, dialogue, and action, and the action is framed in a focused way that feels thrilling and is fun to play. And when we get into the nitty-gritty of the details, I'll go into more of that. But like a lot of the other missions are either very story-heavy, very combat-heavy, but there aren't enough of them that are a nice mix of both. And Tali's mission is definitely one of the pillar versions of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we get more...
Hold on.
I'm sorry, Jeff,
Before you mentioned that there's more action in this one, and it's my favorite in all the Mass Effects because robots. I love blowing up robots. It's so much more satisfying than people. And I get to use Tali's cool like powers where she can like make them fight each other. Ah, I love it.
So before we get further into the mission itself, let's do some check-ins.
Sure. Yeah, the check-ins are getting fewer and fewer because as you get to a certain point in MU2, there aren't more follow-up conversations. They kind of just end until you get to the next hump of the main story. That said, we do have... so here's what's interesting. You have Garrus listed, but I didn't have anything with Garrus because he is not my space boyfriend. And I didn't think to go to Jack because the conversation I think has already played out. But I think because Garrus's mission is closer to where we are now than Jack's was, I've already exhausted the relationship storyline with Jack up into this point, whereas you still have more to talk about with Garrus, I think. And we'll get to that in a minute. But with Samara, so this is really interesting. It's like, it's a 2-second conversation, right? We have the same conversation where it's just really short.
Yeah.
Yeah,
she basically says... Yeah, she takes a moment to say that Shepard's been a really good friend to her and also to pledge aid should you all live.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
that's it.
Oh, that's nice.
It's like
what kind of aid is she talking about?
Well, she's saying that if we all live... that in the future, should we need her, she'll be there.
Oh, okay.
And it's one of those things, though, where it's like you walk in, you ask if you can talk. She says she'd love that. She tells you this, and it's exactly the way MJ framed it. Like, it's 3 sentences. And then the conversation ends, and she sits back down and meditate. And I'm standing there like, okay, I guess I'll see you
chat
later.
Interactions with Samara, for me, are so disappointing. Because, like, to me, she's, like, world's hottest mom, you know? And, like, so every time I go to see her, I'm like, oh, this is a This is a flirting opportunity. No, none. She's all business.
She's all business.
She's done with
true.
that life.
She is.
Man,
however,
I can't wait for Mass Effect 3.
Yeah, right. However, after
You
this,
don't
we
even
both
know.
sort-
You didn't play Citadel. Ooh. Jeff and I will talk.
We'll get there. I haven't played Citadel. There's stuff in 3 I have not experienced that I will when we get to it. We've made that agreement. But that said, after this, we go talk to Thane and we get to follow up after the last mission and get to find out how things are going with his son and find out a little bit more about his deceased spouse, which every time I talk to Thane, it's like the man's words are poetry. It just makes my heart ache that he is straight as an arrow in these games, which is baloney because he's an alien. Like, it shouldn't matter, but it does.
Preaching to my very specific choir.
But that said, what we get here is really great.
Yeah, we get more information about Erica. I was really nervous to talk to Thane because I like him a lot, and he's like this other type that I have. And I was just like, oh man, I've already like told Garrus I basically want to sleep with him. But like, what if something happens here with Thane? I don't know. My heart's not prepared. But I guess it's working out because we talk about Erica, and honestly, she must have been amazing. And while Thane is really cool, kind of wish I had Erica in my party.
Right?
Like, she was...
What's her deal? I can't remember.
So, Erica was basically just a civilian who saw the light of Thane's assassin scope and stepped in front of the target and just refused to move and dared him to shoot, basically.
That's so badass.
Like, she stood up to him, and when he, like, begged her forgiveness, she was just like, we'll see. And then over time, like, their affection for each other grew, and she was just so interesting and so amazing. And I hate that she was fridged for Thane to have this, like, heartbreaking story that he loved his wife so much that when she died, he returned to killing, and he killed her murderers, and he lost connection to his son and all of this, and she had to die to make all of this happen, which makes me sad.
Wait, are you saying that they fridge women in sci-fi stories? Surely that
I
never
know.
happens.
Y'all,
It's a crime.
I don't know if you
criminal crime.
saw me on Facebook or Twitter today, but I was going off on another little tropey thing that sometimes happens, and women are disposable, and it's really frustrating. Like, you know, in this specific example, we never get to meet her, so like it's not a terrible, like, huge loss. But in the thing I was complaining about today, like, this is a main character that's just, you know, on the sideline for no good reason. So that's bumming me out. Yeah. Does that happen a lot in Mass Effect in terms of women just being
It does
tossed
happen quite a
aside?
few times. This is one of the, like, biggest times that it's happened, but it does happen. And
I mean,
like,
I think for an
Honestly, hard
assassin,
for me to
it's
recall how often it happens. But I mean, we pointed out every time we see it in this replay. I think I'm more aware of it now than I was definitely in initial playthroughs.
of course, because we're more aware of all sorts of issues now. So now that we have our big baby brains that are totally open to all of these issues, we're seeing them and we're calling them out because
Yeah, when if this was rewritten today, like, would it be like a best friend or a coworker or like a neighbor, you know, like keep the woman around to, like, as a character during this loyalty mission? Like, how do you think, or like, people would handle it now?
I'm honestly not sure. It probably wouldn't even be the same story.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
if we
hard
wanted
when
to
you're
avoid
trying to
fridging.
tell like a tragic love story. Like it's very common for the tragic love story for the woman to die to motivate the man. I think a way to
could
kind
be
of get around
divorce.
it. Well, right. Well, it could be another way around it is also change the genders, right? Like make Thane's character female and make the person who
Yeah.
dies the husband, or even do two women or two
No,
men.
don't do that.
Oh, no, that's
Don't do
queer.
that.
No, that's
That's
queer
burying
killing.
Yeah, that
gays.
gets into
Yeah.
the other trope of.
Yeah. That's true. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but I think gender swapping is the best way to,
Yeah, I think so, too.
get around something like that. You know, make Erica the party member and make Thane the partner who dies. But yeah, it's tough when you want to tell a very specific story. If you have established characters already, sometimes finding a solution is more complicated. But in this case with Thane, since he was a new character, they could have easily done that to avoid the trope.
On the subject of fridging, which I just learned about recently, I'm writing books set in the world of my Shattered Worlds RPG, and I was just thinking about it. Oh, there's a dead partner. There's another one. There's a lot of tragic backstory, and it's just I think we've gotten so much of it that like even if we know better, like it filters in.
Yeah, it's hard to avoid. But that's
Yeah.
why we have things like sensitivity readers. You know, if you're ever unsure if you're fucking up, hand it to someone who's more versed in the situation than you are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
of course.
I mean, I had an experience recently where I was in the car with my spouse and we laughed at a fat joke instinctively. And like, I always call out a lot of that kind of fat shaming and, you know, that kind of bullshit that's in media, but like it happened so fast. And like we caught it after the fact, but because we're so trained to laugh at something like that, I did it. And then immediately went, oh, fuck, that was gross. Like, why did I laugh at that? You know, and it,
I mean, that's one
being
that's
aware
still
is
actively being enforced in your
Yeah.
Kevin James movies and whatnot.
Yeah, for sure. But it's one of those things that even as long as you're aware, you're making a step in the right direction. But still, some of it is just very hard coded, and working against it is not easy. But as long as we're actively trying to, it's a step in the right direction. I think, at least.
I have a quote about this, actually, not from Mass Effect, oddly enough. And it's, your first thought is what you've been conditioned by society to think. Your second thought is what truly matters.
Yeah.
So when you have that gut reaction of laughing, it's what society has trained you to do. But when you have that second thought of, no, that is what matters.
Yeah, and I have a lot of second thoughts these days.
Yeah. For sure.
So, Matt, you probably didn't have this happen, but during my conversation with Thane, I got the option to say, I want you, Thane. Or, just focus on your son. And it was so disingenuous
Yeah.
to say, I want you, Thane, after he'd just been talking about his dead wife this whole time.
I hate it.
And
I
how
feel
he
like
was-
sometimes the writers try to trap you into being an asshole. Like, come on. Everybody knows that's what you want to say. It should have been like a flirting version of it, you know? Like, hey, in a
It
few
wasn't
weeks when you're
even-
over it.
It just wasn't appropriate in any way, shape, or form. Like,
Yeah.
this is not the time for me to be like, hey, we could totally bang if you wanted to.
Yeah.
It's not the time. So instead, I said to him, like, you should focus on your son right now because that's what's really important. Because it is!
Yeah. It should be the only choice.
And then he called me Siha.
Yep. Which is his nickname for you.
Does he call male Shep anything?
Nope. Mal Shepard does not get a nickname from Thane.
That's
Womp
weak.
womp.
I know.
Oh, can I just really quick before we leave off of
Yeah,
Thane?
of course.
Sure.
As a poet myself, like I always love it when they get poetry right. Like his words are so beautiful and so like stripped bare. You know, like everybody who plays this game is going to have a slightly different image, you know, but with the emotional weight of, you know, Thane just gets right to the depth of things, to the deepest. I feel like, I don't know. I like it.
No, I follow you. I'm there with you.
This is why I love the Drell. The Drell and the Quarians. Forever.
Oh my God, yeah, I have so much to say once we get to the flotilla. But first,
Heck yeah.
MJ had a conversation with her space boyfriend that I did not get. He was still calibrating for me, so I just walked away.
Yep. So I walk in and I ask him if he has a minute, and he has this very funny reaction where he kind of looks around to make sure nobody's watching, even though who would be watching? You're in the battery. And
no
then
one
he
ever goes there.
And then he pushes a button to close the door behind me so nobody will definitely see or hear. And he wants to talk about the conversation that we just had. One of my favorite things he says is, I've never considered cross-species intercourse before. Now I feel dirty and clinical.
That
And he also gives me an
cannot
out.
be true. That was the first thing I thought as soon as I met an alien.
Well, humans apparently are very unique.
I see. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Garrus gives me an out if I want it. He says, you could find something closer to home. And I tell him that I don't want something closer to home. I want someone I could trust. Because honestly, just because I could have sex with Jacob does not mean that I want to.
Yeah.
So I then get a moment to say to him, hey, if you're uncomfortable, that's totally okay. I don't want you to feel pressured, which I really appreciate because it's really important for everybody to be comfortable and happy and to feel safe and respected. And I feel like we don't really get that often, where we can check in with our partner in Mass Effect and say, hey, are you comfortable? Are you okay with how this is going? So
They compress it down into such a small amount of time. I mean, I guess it's that way with all the friendships. Like, real friends talk to each other more than Jacob, like, I got stuff to do, you know. But anyway, like, the romance, yeah, is so shortened that like, you don't get to do the subtle, like, back touch or the quick email or the, you know, all the little things. So
that's why I really like the Garrus romance, because we do get these moments of like, hey, I care about you and I want to make sure that we're on the same page and everything is going well. And that feels so much more realistic to me.
Mm-hmm.
Garrus says to me that I'm the only friend he has left. And essentially, this isn't about sex, it's about us. And it was just like, oh, it's about both, though.
Let's be real. Be real.
That is tough, though.
a little
That's
bit
usually a
about
red flag if someone comes into a relationship with zero friends.
I mean, I know for a fact that he has more friends. He just doesn't feel like he can count on them.
Maybe
Like,
you're just
he
the only
feels
one
like
that
he
he
has
wants
no
to
friends.
like get down with.
He also says, you don't ever have to worry about making me uncomfortable. Nervous, yes. Never uncomfortable. It was just like, oh, same.
Relatable.
That's a mood.
Relatable content. My crushes make me nervous all the time.
Yep.
But not uncomfortable, just really nervous. Let's see, what else? What else happened in this conversation? This conversation is just rife with excellent quotes.
I'm sure.
He wants to wait until like the calm before the storm, so I'm not gonna get my like romance scene until right before we go for the Omega 4 relay. And he says, you know me, I always like to savor the last shot right before popping the heat sink. Oh no, that metaphor went somewhere horrible.
Wow.
So relatable.
This is why I love him. He's my favorite. He has the best lines. He's funny, and like that's one of the most important things when choosing a partner.
Heck yeah,
Someone
funny
who
goes
makes
a
you
long
laugh.
way.
It makes you feel good.
Like Thane level thoughtfulness is great, but like funny is really helpful.
Yeah.
And Shepard's face when he makes that terrible metaphor basically says, "You're an idiot, but you're my idiot." So it's fine. And then
Yeah,
that's it.
partners
for Garrus.
get away with a lot.
Yeah.
Yep, I love him so much.
That's for sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, like, it's funny how this game does a good job of humanizing these characters. Because, like, my experience with Jack thus far about picking on her, and because like being touchy-feely makes her uncomfortable, but not in a like go away sort of way, but in a like, I don't know how I feel about this sort of way. It just makes for fun needling and picking on each other, which is something like me and my spouse in real life do all the time. Like, you know, we needle at each other in the way that people who really love each other pick on each other. And you get a little bit of that out of Jack, a thing that you never see before that moment because Jack is so closed off to most people. And it's the same thing with Garrus. Like, Garrus looks like this badass whenever he's Archangel, but the minute you get him in a room alone, he is a dork, and it's great.
He's such a dork.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, I think
Jack
that's it
is
for check-ins,
Jack.
right? There were no others.
You mentioned Jack for a sec, and I have to say, when I first played the game, I was just trying to date Jack, but like this time, it was really like kid gloves, fragile. Like, it's obvious that you have deep-seated chronic trauma or an orphan. You know, like. Like, I just was like super appropriate and friendly, and I feel like it's a very different experience. But maybe that's just life. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I think you're inclined to view it differently when you're older and more experienced, right? And like you can recognize the trauma, whereas before she just seemed like this loudmouth badass who would curse like a sailor. Like now you're like, oh, all of that is a front because you're hurting real bad. Got it.
Thanks, it's a trauma.
Yeah. So I suppose this is a good place for us to move on to the main core of the episode, the mission itself. First of all, I remember the first time playing this game, I was so excited to finally go to the flotilla because you hear about it for a game and a half, just this awesome fleet of ships, and I couldn't wait to see it, and it does not disappoint. It is easily like culturally one of the coolest spaces, even though it's fairly samey. Like the people there are really awesome. The intricate ways they show diversity in the different Quarians by the material of their hoods, the design on it, the color schemes, the strap placement. If you pay a lot more close attention, like first of all, there doesn't seem to be color gender relations. Like men are wearing pink, women are wearing dark colors. Like, and as far as I can tell in this culture, there's no non-binary, though there might be. But like, color doesn't seem to matter, right? It's whatever you identify with. It's whatever you wear to stand out as you. And I think that's really cool.
I am of the opinion that color reflects like position on the ship, because maybe I'm
like
wrong.
Star Trek.
I think the admirals are more dark colors. Though I think one of them might be red, so I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think one of them, the one who's kind of rude to you, is wearing has pink straps, I thought, but
maybe
that's like a general, and then your Quarian space mom is like red.
That's true. Yeah.
Her voice was really familiar to me, by the way. She was great.
Oh wait, the aunt. Or
she was one of the judges that is helpful to you.
One of the judges was Morrigan from Dragon Age.
Oh, okay.
And also,
because I heard her voice and I was like, "What the fuck?"
Well, and also your aunt who can't preside over it because of the connection. She's actually played by a very famous actress who I didn't realize back in the day, but because I'm watching The Expanse. She's actually played by the actress. I'm pulling up her name, Shariah Aghdashloo. I'm definitely butchering her name. And I apologize.
You definitely did.
But she's on The Expanse, and she plays one of the lead characters, Christian, and she's amazing. First of all, she's an incredible actress, but like, I recognize her voice. Her voice is really memorable. And so when she spoke, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe you're in this game. I mean, of course I can. They had tons of great voice talent, but that was really cool for me. It's always fun when I go back to something old and find someone whose work I enjoy now in that older thing. It's always kind of a fun little like time travel almost.
First of all, I would like to say I'm immensely amused that we keep calling her our aunt when she's Tali's aunt.
Shush. She's everybody's aunt.
It's no. That's we'll get into this later, but that's why I love this mission so much, because like I don't know if you guys believe in love at first sight, but like for my shepherd, Tali was like, I'm just going to marry this woman. Like, it's just inevitable. So like, that is my aunt, you know, I'm getting to know her. Like, she's going to be at family reunions.
You're getting
like,
to know
I was
the
on my
in-laws.
best behavior at the fleet. You know what I mean? Because it's
You're
like
meeting the
potential
parents.
in-laws.
You got to meet. You're gonna meet. Well,
Well,
not actually. Yeah, I know.
Oh, no.
Woof.
Surrogate parents, maybe.
So I just want to say that I love the shape of Quarian ships.
So cool. Like
They're
the
so different
round,
from other
like-
ships that we've seen.
Well, yeah, and like the round front end when you're watching it as you fly to it, like it's a wheel spinning around
Yeah.
whatever that center piece is, and like I don't know if that's for show, for momentum, for atmosphere, whatever, but it has this cool movement to it as it's moving through space.
Have you guys heard
One
about
of the really cool things about Quarian ships in general is that they're all, for the most part, salvaged.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool. The spinning, one of the ways to simulate gravity on a starship is to have a spinning kind of
yeah, that's
place.
right. Yeah,
like a
totally.
habitat ring or whatever.
Yeah.
So maybe it was supposed to be that kind of deal.
Yeah.
Maybe.
They don't get into it.
I would like to quote the passcode for Tali to prove she was who she said she was.
Sure.
After time adrift among open stars, along tides of light and through shoals of dust, I will return to where I began.
So beautiful.
That's great. And also, like, you bringing that up reminds me, like, when they are talking in the Quarian language, they speak predominantly in English or Common, which, like, sure, why not? Of course, cater to the humans. We are humans playing the game. But that said, whenever the Quarians are speaking the Quarian language, it's always stunningly gorgeous. I love it. And I love their summation that they always say, Keelah. It's just... the way it rolls, it's such a brilliantly crafted language. Reminds me of a lot of some of the Tolkien stuff, and like it feels poetic and beautiful. And I love hearing them speak in their native language.
Have you guys
We
talked
all know
yet?
what...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Have you talked yet about what you think the influences of the Quarian culture is at this point?
We've talked about it a little bit.
Because to me,
They
it
thought that
really
it could
feels
be-
like a distillation of like the Roma and
Yeah.
Jews in the diaspora, Native Americans. Like I get some they're kind of victims of a genocide. And it's all up in there when you got these sentient robots. Like I don't know, it hits all the things I'm really interested in, underdogs, like trying to survive out there in space. So cool.
I would say primarily Roma and aspects of Judaism. We do kind of see... Hey, Matt, is there some kind of pilgrimage in Judaism that you know of?
I mean, well, yeah. I mean, there's birthright, which is up until a certain age, you're welcome for free by an organization that runs it. I think the organization is also called Birthright. I could be misspeaking a little bit, but essentially, you're invited to come back to Israel, to visit Israel, see it. I think it's before your 21st birthday, if I recall.
I think it's later than that because Anna went after her 21st.
So it might be maybe before your 30th or 25th. I don't remember. But yeah, there's encouragement to come back to Israel to see it, to take in the culture firsthand and all of that stuff. So yeah, I not specifically a pilgrimage like the Quarian do. That seems more like kind of what the Amish do.
Yeah.
I can't
I didn't
want to
go Amish first if there was something... Rumspringa. I didn't want to go Amish first if there was something in Judaism that reflected it. But yeah, if there's nothing quite like that in Judaism, then it is similar to the Amish Rumspringa.
Yeah, I think there are similar values in like go see the world to see what we don't have here and to make your own choice about how you want to live in the world, which seems to resemble Rumspringa a little more. That said, again, I'm not the foremost authority on Judaism, even though I am Jewish, so I could be missing stuff. And if anyone listening, any of our listeners who are Jewish, who might have even a clearer picture of that kind of stuff, please let us know. But there are definitely elements. There are definitely elements of all of that. And I think there's elements of all of that culture even as we proceed through the story, like all the talk about the trial and how different people interact with Tali, thinking that she's guilty versus thinking she's not. It's really interesting the way the community seems kind of insular in the fact that information travels fast and everyone has thoughts on it. It's not like this large nation on this ship where some people won't even know who Tali is. It's clear that everyone knows who Tali is. She is of some importance beyond just her father having influence, and everyone is talking about the fact that she's on trial.
Yeah.
I think they really nailed it with the writing of them as like a culture of law, like from what I gather, like the Hebrew like understanding developed over time because they just let everybody say whatever, and then they pick the best bits to put on the margins. Is it the midrash?
Yes.
Is that right?
You're in the ballpark for sure.
And so like I love that the Quarians, because they all know each other, they have to respect each other's opinions, and so it makes perfect sense that it would be a trial. Like I think it's a really great choice for the writers to show us what Quarians think like. I also got a bit of Fremen from Dune.
Oh, sure. I can see that for sure. Shall we focus in a little bit and talk about the trial itself?
A little bit before we get to the trial, I want to talk about the title of captain.
Oh, yes.
Because Shepard is there as Tali's captain, even though Shepard never obtained the title of captain in the Alliance Navy. And also even says, like, also, I'm kind of not with the Alliance Navy anymore. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah.
And you're told, like, well, you're Tali's captain. You're responsible for the lives of your crew. So, like, you are the captain. So it had me thinking that the title of captain is as much spiritual as it is official.
For sure, especially in this space. Although I kind of just want Shepard to look at Tali and just go, look at me. I am the captain now. Sorry. I should be fired.
I don't get that reference.
It's a reference to a recent movie. Don't worry about it.
But
okay,
this is
fine.
what you talking about captaincy is like so important because they have so many of these different ships, because they have to work together. I really love Star Trek and Captain Picard. You really get to see how much authority and like power they have. They could just like raise an eyebrow and somebody will do something. So like good captains are very like cautious and don't just yell orders. They have a duty of care basically to their people. That's why I find dating on the ship a little odd. Like, what's the work balance? What's the power dynamic? I don't know. I feel like the Quarians really are like the captain is important and has a lot of responsibility. And
yeah, the captain's almost a spiritual leader.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
I also really like this blessing that is bestowed upon Shepard. May you stand between your crew and harm as you lead them through the empty quarters of the stars.
Yeah.
Please just speak more Quarian poetry to me.
Yeah.
Like, I want nothing else in this life.
I love it so much.
This mission just seems rife with things that we were clamoring for in other missions. And it's not to say that those missions were bad, but it's sort of like what we were talking about with Nelson in the episode focusing around the Krogan. Like, there, Tachanka and here feel the most steeped in the culture of the loyalty mission and partner that you're bringing, whereas other missions just feel kind of, milquetoast a little bit because you're in a location that's kind of gentrified, or like any mission on the Citadel feels a little less than, just because you're in a common place with a variety of different people and there's nothing focused on the race of that character. Whereas here we get to learn about new cultures in a way that we haven't from those other missions. And that, I think, for me at least, makes it inherently way more interesting.
Yeah. I like learning something new.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's amazing how little we know about Turians because they're so integrated into this cosmopolitan Citadel life.
Yeah.
Like, we get, I don't know about 3, I didn't finish it, but like we don't get a lot about who they are as like a group. So yeah, I love these.
We
cultural
never get that
episodes.
much.
Yeah, even through 3, you don't really get that much.
All I know is that their religion, it has something to do with spirits, and I don't know what the spirits are necessarily.
Yeah, they don't really go into it.
I get the feeling you could
Like,
be
the
married to
Asari have
Garrus for
goddesses.
10 years, and he wouldn't have explained it.
And I still won't know. I'll be like, why did I paint my face for our wedding? And he'll be like, oh. Why did you? You didn't have to. Garrus. Anyway. So the charge is that Tali brought active Geth on board as part of a secret project run by her father.
Yeah, the charge is treason because while Tali claims that all of the Geths she sent were deactivated and completely neutralized, Geth went rogue on the Alarai and killed the crew, and they're claiming, the Admiralty Board is claiming that it's Tali's fault because she sent them there active, and they activated and then just took over.
Well, here's the thing. They don't even tell her that they took over the Alarai. They tell her that you're charged with sending active Geth to the ship. And she's upset. She's freaking out. Her former captain, Kar Dinar, was supposed to arrest her, but instead of doing so, he's just like, so you're confined to the ship. That's
Don't
all
leave.
I'm going to do, because I'm not going to fucking arrest you, because this is stupid.
Can I just say this was really sloppy police work and kind of shady? My first thought was red flag, conspiracy. Why are you fucking with my girlfriend?
We find out that she is no longer Tali Zora Vasnima. Thank you. I almost called her Naraya, but that was her pre-pilgrimage name.
Yeah.
So after the pilgrimage, she becomes Vasnima, but now she's being called Tali Zora Vas Normandy.
Because she's serving on that ship, and she gets really outraged by this. She's like, it's like you've already exiled me because I don't even have my ship name anymore.
To me, that one felt like
meet-
a writer's trick to make us bond with her more. You know, because it's such a
definitely.
like dumb thing. Like for this group that's so law oriented, why are they just like poking her with sticks? You know, why don't they just
Because they're
deal
all
with the
dicks,
charge?
Jeff. They're all dicks.
I'm really getting a all cops are bastards kind of feeling now that we're talking about it.
I mean, hi, welcome to our podcast.
Yeah, that's true.
Because honestly, Shepard knows Tali. He knows that she would never do anything that would
Of
harm
course.
her people. So it's like all I wanted to do was just be like, this is the most idiotic thing in the world. I want to see these charges. I'm going to make a case and like quit messing with us. You know, but I have to be all diplomatic and like talk to everyone.
Well, I mean, Shepard sort of does that after when the trial is resumed, but we'll get to that.
So we meet Admiral Ron, and Tali is like really excited to see her, calls her Auntie Ron, hugs her, and Admiral Ron is just like, yeah, okay, that's nice, and like barely reacts.
Yeah, I don't think there are hugging people. It doesn't seem like or overly like.
Tali
physical.
spent too much time with the humans.
I think so.
Because, okay, I like that headcanon, but I also thought it could be that Quarians are like Jehovah's Witnesses where they completely shut down if you've done something bad.
I mean,
maybe
it could
they
be
are
that
huggy.
too.
I
Normally.
thought
but
it was
she's-
more. Go ahead, Matt.
Go ahead. I was just gonna say I thought that she was particularly warm to Tali afterwards. Like after that awkward physical contact, like she still spoke with a reverence and a love for Tali. It sounded like in the dialogue. So I don't know that she was pulled away necessarily. I think it was more just the physical contact might have been surprising.
I love
think
that read.
It could.
Because Tali's like all huggy now. That's great.
I think that it could also be because of what she knows and what Tali doesn't.
Yeah, that's also true. Because we find out moments after this, when it's revealed in the trial, a ton of information that she could have told her and didn't. And like there's a reaction. And so that could be it too, for sure.
Yeah. So
this is
Shepard
the
has
most
to speak for
phony trial.
I'm sorry, Jeff?
I get so angry. This trial was just a trumped up kangaroo court.
Yes, this trial is full of shit. So Shepard has to speak for Tali's defense because the captain must speak for the accused, and by stripping Tali of her ship name, they forced Shepard to step into this role. So they wanted to be like, no humans involved, but Admiral Ron was like, fuck you, you put her in this position. She has to be involved. Good job.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's
Don't
funny
you feel like
how...
the fix was in? Like, because you're a famous person with a big ass starship full of, like, you're an important person. Shouldn't they have told you ahead of time that, like, you'd need to be ready for this thing? You know what I mean?
The whole thing is that you're not Quarian, so they didn't even think that you'd care, that you'd be there.
Yeah.
So Admiral Ron is overseeing because of how close she is to Tali's family. And Tali's like, oh yeah, Dad probably had to recuse himself as well. Oh, oof. Oofa doofa. So you have this moment where you can talk to the Admiralty Board about Tali. And I take this moment to be like, I'm happy to be here. It's a shame her captain couldn't be here to support her, you know, like he wants to, because you guys suck.
Yeah, you can make it pretty clear that you're not down for the BS that's going on, and you're onto them. Shepard states it pretty plainly. I do like, though, the moment when Shepard's told that he or she or they has to represent Tali. Shepard kind of gives Tali this look of like, okay. But then, minute he's in the courtroom, he's like, well, listen to this, and here's another thing. It's like,
you're out of order.
This whole room,
this whole trial's on trial. Wait, I did it wrong.
Like, it's this. I like how Shepard always shows this hesitance, but then when plunged into those situations, hits the ground running anyway. And so, like, I'm skeptical when they make Shepard be skeptical, because Shepard is always in charge 90% of the time.
Can we take a moment to call out how Tali wrings her hands when she's nervous?
Yeah, that I noticed that, and they make you notice
cute.
too. Yeah, like she's talking and her voice sounds strong and even, but her hands are ringing under the counter. Yeah.
So she claims that she sent these disabled parts to her dad. And then they explain that Geth seized her father's lab ship, and it's possible that everyone on that ship is dead. And no one fucking bothered to tell her.
Yeah, and Tali
so she's finding
freaks out.
Like, this is a disgusting manipulation. She has absolutely no chance to grieve or to, like, come to any kind of terms with the possibility of her father's death.
Yeah.
Okay, I have two conflicting thoughts. One, as much as I hate to say this, I did have a brief fleeting thought where I might have even turned over to Tali and go, did you send wiped Geth? Like, so I did have that terrible thought. But then I also, like, wanted to jump out of my chair and say, the way you're treating me as a human is like an act of war. And I'm like going to burn this ship to the ground. I'm a specter. I can do whatever I want. Like, you didn't even tell her dad is dead? Like, I'm a much angrier Shepard inside.
I took the renegade response and I fucking yelled at them.
Hell yeah.
I was angry.
Yeah, I took the Paragon response, which is still you calling them out, but in a in a less aggressive "go fuck yourself" kind of way.
I was mad.
What do you
How dare
What do you
hurt
think
my
the
friend this
difference
way?
for you? What's the difference between those two choices? Like, why did you go one way or the other?
Well, I guess by taking the Paragon, Matt was trying to express his outrage in a more polite and diplomatic way, whereas me, no time for being diplomatic. Fuck you, how dare you?
Yes.
Yeah. But I think
Like,
what's interesting here about this moment, though, is, you know, it's by design, right? We find out. So the point, after giving this information, Shepard insists that we go to the Alarai. And I appreciate how Shepard, no matter what your response is he's essentially like, look, this trial's important and all, even though it's not. But we should really, like, deal with the act of Geth on a ship in the flotilla first. And then maybe we worry about the trial thing because, like, Geth bad. Tree pretty, let's go kill them, you know.
I have a couple of additional thoughts. Shalaran says Tali should have been informed, and I wanted to say, yes, by you.
Yes.
You, her aunt. You should have told her when you saw her 5 minutes ago.
Hold on a sec.
Fuck you.
I think it's important to remember that the fix was in, right? So I think they wanted you to go down for this crime. I'm sorry, wanted Tali to go down for this crime. I feel like we're the same person. Anyway, they wanted to take you down. And not only are they taking you down, like they want to be, in a way, like in a good cop organization or like investigation that was above board, you wouldn't want to tell the suspect too much ahead of time because they might run. But like, you're a Spectre. They are fucking with you. Like,
Yeah,
like,
it's
no.
Well, also the Quarians wouldn't give a shit about Shepard being a Spectre because they don't have a seat on the council. While they, like, I guess respect the council. Or
They're
they
not
have
afraid
to.
of you. That's the problem. You got to make them. I don't know why, but when it comes to Tali, I go full renegade. It's terrible.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that. But before we move on from this trial, there's something else going on throughout this discussion. It may sound like the trial is about Tali's treason, but honestly, it's not. It is
How do you
actually about... So, this trial isn't really about Tali. This trial is really about what the Quarians want to do about the Geth.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's definitely true, for sure.
So it's really about, do they want to go to war with the Geth to reclaim their homeworld, or do they want to leave the Geth alone and go find a new homeworld? And we have two members of the Admiralty Board falling on one side of the line and one falling on the other. And that's why this trial is happening. Because if Tali is found innocent, then the two people who believe that they should go to war kind of can find the support that they want to actually go to war. Whereas the person who believes that they shouldn't will have the proof that he needs that going to war with the Geth is a bad idea.
That's another thing. They never just, if they would just talk to you and Tali at the beginning, they would know that Tali would never try to hurt the Quarians. She's not an idiot. Like, there's, like, her father maybe made a mistake, but, like, it's not her business. And also the Geth are really powerful, and, like, they could have tricked anybody. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't go to war because your enemy is too powerful. You know? Like, I don't know. I wouldn't
Also,
study
I have
them,
a lot of opinions about how
but-
the Quarians treated the Geth to begin with.
It's
Yeah, like,
rough.
it's
I
not-
don't love it at all.
Yeah, it's super not black and white. There's a lot of gray. But, like, when the trial dismisses so you can go to the Alarai, when you talk to your aunt afterwards...
I talked to everybody. I talked to Vitor. I talked to Admiral
I
Zen.
talked-
I talked to Cal Rieger.
I know I talk to everybody too, but the point I'm trying to make is that her auntie says that the reason there was a level of theatrics because they wanted Tali's reaction to be natural. If they had told Tali what was up beforehand, which is kind of a bullshit tactic, but like the logic behind it was if her reaction was genuine and she was genuinely outraged, people might be more inclined to believe her innocence. Whereas if she had the information already and didn't react, they might think that there was more nefarious purposes behind it.
That's a wild way to run a government. Yeah. I just gotta say, like we need a big drama. Like, whoa, it's like Game of Thrones level nonsense.
Yeah, it's strange. And when you talk to members of the Admiralty Board, like they all give you some one bit or another of, I hope we can resolve this quickly. We don't want to see you go down for this. Like even the one who was being a jerk, who's on the quip,
the quip.
After you confront him, like he does back up a little bit, like he does share some earnest thoughts with you. Although my favorite thing is when he gives his full name and you ask him about the ship name, which Tali explicitly tells you not to do. She face palms when you do ask him about it. It's just my favorite thing. She's like, "Oh, here we go."
Yeah. So here are my notes about this whole section. I feel really bad for Vitor because he's still fucked up. He's still real fucked up from that first time we found him.
He sure is.
He is my favorite side character.
Progress and feeling better.
Yeah.
He's my favorite side
Admiral
character in
Zen...
any of these games.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just love because he's a hero. He puts it all out on the line, gives it all he got, and he keeps a good attitude.
Yeah, he tries really hard with his recovery. Admiral Zen is weirdly on Tali's side. She is also voiced by the Morrigan. And Admiral Zen wants to revert the Geth to Quarian control, which I cannot even begin to tell you is how bad of an idea that is.
It felt like a lie. It's so bonkers. Like, I can't even fathom it. It's what's really messed up is like that lady thinks it's possible, which is really dark in my opinion.
You just want to take this sentient race and remove their free will entirely so they can serve you again.
Yeah,
For
I don't
me,
like that.
that's like an entirely alien way of thinking about things. And I wonder what the writer was, is there a real world analogy that we can get with?
Well, slavery in general is what that is.
It seems sociopathic, like, to stick in a game in this context.
But it's such a real world issue. It's something that is kind of happening now with, like, prison labor, for example.
I mean, yeah, the story with the Geth rides that line, right, of, like, because they're robots, even though they're an artificial intelligence, does that matter? Does the choices we make and the way we treat them matter? And like that's a story that's been broached for ages in sci-fi, in Star Trek, in Star Wars, Alien, like androids, cyborgs, and robots have always had this weird nebulous middle ground, right? Where like where is the moral side of this argument? And I think the Quarians as a culture are used to explore that for sure, especially when dealing with the Geth.
Yeah.
It's just a really backwards way of thinking that still taints the Quarians, yeah. I'm glad they wrote it this way. Like, I'm glad they explore all these different things. But, man, it just gets my goat when I think about it.
Sure.
Trying to control another people.
I also took a moment to speak to Cal Rieger.
Of course.
My favorite quote out of him was, "I can't really comment on that, ma'am. I just shoot things."
I love that.
Did I get Vitor and Rieger
Did you get
confused?
Vitor and Cal Rieger confused?
Maybe I did. Cal Rieger's the hero guy, right?
Yeah, Rieger's the Marine.
Okay.
Yeah, he's the Marine.
Vitor's the first Quarian that you meet in the game.
Okay, yeah.
The one who's
Han
hiding
Rieger
from
or whatever
collectors.
is my jam.
Yeah. When I approached Ron, she was talking to this NPC, and Tali starts yelling at her, and that NPC just kind of backs up and goes, "Nope," and walks away.
Yeah, just is like, I'm out.
Nope. Let's see. Admiral Garrel has Tali's back. Admiral Chorus is a Geth apologist, and I am on his side. While he's a dick to my friend, he's right. The Geth defended themselves against the Quarians. So find a new colony or make peace.
Yeah.
Those are my opinions.
Yeah. But that's the thing. That guy is so out on an island amongst his people.
Is. He really
It's
is.
wild.
But he's right, guys.
It's a kind of thing where, like, once you're evolved enough to know that you're not always right, like, you are in the difficult compromises zone. And, like, you have to accept reality, which is the race we enslaved is now free. You know?
Yep. And, you know, we murdered a bunch of them.
God.
Yeah, it's such a strange place to be, and especially considering as Shepard, like, you watched the Geth murder tons of people and turn them into husks, and, like, again, they were being controlled by Sovereign, or not Sovereign. Sovereign, right?
Yeah.
Sovereign. And so, like, some of their free will was taken, but still, you know, there's a lot of trauma attached to that too. And I think all of this dialogue is meant to make you face it and question it.
Yeah.
Do we want to start talking about the Alarai?
Yeah. So,
Oh, hell yeah.
after talking with everybody and getting your clearance, you go to the second dock and you leave on a shuttle for the Alarai, which is the ship taken over by the Geth. And from the minute you arrive, you're fighting Geth. Quick notes on the combat here. I am in my element as a Vanguard. Jeff hit the nail on the head when he said fighting robots is fun, because as a biotic charging human, watching them explode into parts as I hit them is always satisfying. Also, fighting the Geth, because I'm so used to it from the first game, like, I don't know, there's something about that's intuitive with the combat, and, like, the shotgun I'm using with the incendiary rounds, like, it just, the combat worked really well. There wasn't a ton of challenge. I never felt like there was enough challenge that I felt like I was playing a game and I was combating against the mechanics, but I never felt like it was overwhelming or that I couldn't do it. I didn't have a lot of stupid deaths like I've had in other missions we've done. It just felt fun and volatile and, like, kind of really invigorating.
It was kind of slow going for me. I was just like, overload, warp, pistol, overload. And, like, it was a little meh for me.
I mean, I guess also my class is based on aggressive combat, whereas yours is more defensive. And so I can see how it might be a little more boring for you playing as your class.
Yeah. I got a lot of creds from this mission.
Oh my god, there were so many terminals that you didn't even have to hack. You just clicked on them and you got credits.
And just free money.
And I'm all for free money. Although I did screw up one of the hacking mini games just because I misclicked and then it locks you out and you just lose that money, and that's really aggravating. I hate when that happens.
I feel a little bit bad stealing from the Quarians, though.
Yes, I thought that exact thing. Like, why can't we put all that stuff in a bag and, like, give to them?
Because I want money.
No. I just mean the game doesn't give us that option. Or I want to talk to Tali about it. Like, should we be taking all this stuff?
Look, being a space vigilante is a lot. It costs a lot of money.
It really
That'd
does.
be funny if they had, like, one-liner where they're like, hey, they were real jerks about this whole trial thing, so I'm jacking this 20,000 credit thing or whatever.
Like Tali giving you the okay to jack them, essentially, because they were jerks.
Yeah.
I also got into a heated discussion with Tali about whether or not they should go back to Rannoch.
Yeah. And, like, Tali is like, it's really interesting. She's pretty calm and collected most of the time, but when you get her talking about Geth, she gets pretty bloodthirsty. Like, she just believes there's no chance for peace, that they deserve their homeworld back, and that the Geth must be destroyed. Like, she's pretty absolute at this point in the game, at least, about how she feels, and it's really quite shocking.
It's almost
Yeah, it
like
was hard
she
for
was
me
trained.
I like that. It was hard for me because I like want to be there for her and like respect her ideas and stuff. It was kind of like being married. Like sometimes you just have to set aside judgment on somebody's values, like briefly. Like we'll come back to this, is kind of how I took it.
Sometimes you have to be like, sweetie, genocide is wrong.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's a hard conversation to have with a partner, though, I'll tell you what.
Usually that's John's side of the conversation, but I'm agreeing with him. But yeah, I keep telling her, colonize a new world. Y'all fucked up.
Yeah.
You don't get your old world.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. You can't just go back and say it's yours again. Like, you made a mistake.
To me, that felt like a really strong parallel to Israel. The idea that, like, we'll do some rough stuff to get our home back. And other folks in the culture saying, like, nah, we kind of fucked up and lost that place, so we'll make a new home somewhere else. I don't know.
Oh,
it's
yeah, that is a
interesting.
strong parallel.
Yeah. I thought about that just the other day. Like, what if America goes totally tits up and gets really rough? Like, us trade unionists are going to have to either, like, stand up and fight or, like, run to Canada or something. Like, that would be really tough for this entire fleet of people. Like, nope, never going home.
Yeah, I don't know.
And
I think for me, home is more about who I'm with and where specifically I am. And so I tend to lean on the side of, Shepherd of, find a new home. As long as you're with the people you love, you'll make it work. Like this soil, this specific location, I get it, but also I feel like Tali's views are just a little extreme.
Yeah, Tali's coming from a place of this is the difference between 60 years and 600 years.
Yeah.
And yes, that's valid, but honestly, do your people really deserve to have it that easy after the war crimes and atrocities that they committed?
Yeah. But I don't think Tali sees it that way.
No, of course not, because it's her own people.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that it was so deep-seated, that it was so, like, I feel like it's almost immovable. I thought I would convince her at a certain point that, like, the Geth might improve. You might be able to find peace with them. I thought I'd use my captain powers and it would, like, smooth it over, but I don't know.
This conversation, though, definitely doesn't get resolved. Shepherd essentially says, well, for the moment, we should move on. And it's not long after that we come across Tali's father, whose body we find.
Well, so we find out that Rael was developing a weapon to hack Geth AI, to hack the Geth AI network, which, is a fucking war crime, because he was having Tali send in these inoperable pieces and hooking them up and connecting them and turning them on. And his colleagues were saying, this would go faster if she would send us active stuff. And he explicitly says, I will not have any blowback affecting her. Too late, Rael.
Sure.
What an idiot. What a bad father. Like, part of being a grown-up and having children, from what I hear, because I don't have any, but it's like responsibility and not dumping your crap on your kids. Like, you're committing crimes, dude. Like, it's going to affect her either way. I don't know. I feel like that was a distinction without a difference.
Yeah, he's like, I don't want anything going back to her. But when you fuck up and die, it's all going to go back to her anyway.
Holla.
So, go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to say, but here is where, like, first of all, so, like, Tali finds this out and she's still mad and is also immediately like, they can't know about this. No one can know that this is happening. It's important to her that her father's name, like, even though the lack of responsibility that he showed Tali still wants to protect his name and preserve his memory, which is
I got
strange.
a little worked up and I jumped over us finding Rael's body.
Yeah.
Because two of my points kind of blended into each other and skipped over finding his body. So that totally sucked.
Yeah, and Tali immediately is hysterical. There's a Paragon action that I assume we all take to kind of like pull her aside. And
We would all be monsters if we didn't.
right.
I mean, for me, like, as just relationship porn, like, there's nothing better than getting to comfort your video game girlfriend, like, at a difficult time. It was beautiful.
Just pull her to the side and give her a hug.
Yep. And like then
Better hug than Ron gave her.
And then Tali immediately apologizes, and Shepard's like, "Don't apologize. You're standing over your dead father. You have nothing to apologize for." And then, of course, Tali is convinced that her father would have left her a message, which, of course, he did, trying to warn her and to tell her how to deactivate the Geth that are on the station, which then you have to go and do. But, like, immediately afterwards, Tali is both, like, invigorated to go get it done, but also incredibly angry that she's in this position in the first place because of him.
Yup. Dads are disappointing. Except for your dad, Matt.
I mean, yes, I love my dad. But yeah, I mean, Mass Effect has a lot of issues with dads. And no moms, though. Like, where are the moms? Seriously, folks. Where are the moms?
I mean, Samara.
Well, besides Samara, though. And she is the mom. Like, there are no team members lamenting about their moms. Where are the moms? That's the problem here, I think. Or the other dads. You know, either way. The other parental figure that's not the bad dads. Because there are a lot of bad dads in Mass Effect.
They're all bad dads. You know who doesn't have a bad dad? Garrus. Probably.
Well, we don't know.
I think. All I know is Garrus's dad does not like me. That's all I know.
But yeah, so after this, we do go to the final area, and we engage in a larger squad of Geth to finally try and shut down what's going on the station.
And that's when we get the information about Rael, Zora, and how he wanted to protect Tali in the end. He did a really shitty job of it.
Correct.
I mean, you just gotta know. You can't be Mengele-ing it up and have kids at home. Like, you gotta be up front and, like, tell the government what you're up to. You know, but this always happens. Like, you hear about, I had a kid in high school whose dad got busted for embezzling, and it's like, that's not a very good dad, you know?
Yeah.
No,
yeah,
it's a bad dad.
Well, and what's also...
Not all dads can be Keith Mars.
I mean...
That's what it comes down to.
Well, yeah, and also, like, when we talking about that cutscene where, like, he doesn't want any of this to get back to the politicians. He's like, leave the politics out of it. It's like, you're making a decision to create more political bullshit by not involving the politics. Like, this doesn't make it better. It makes it worse. Circumventing the law and the responsibility does not remove the issues of it unless you are an absolute success, which, if anyone watched a movie knows, not going to happen.
No, everything gets found out eventually. I mean, it might be after your death, but, like, it might hasten your death if you're, like, doing this kind of nonsense. Like, I get the sense that he was a sort of true believer, and maybe that's where Tali gets it. And so he felt like anything's okay because we got to win the war.
Right.
Which is a thing that happens to CIA agents or cops or, you know, the FBI or whatever. Like, we can get away with a few secrets because we have a good mission. And it's, for me as a pacifist, it's usually like, did you though? Like, are you really living your values over here? But whatever.
So Tali begs Shepard not to use this because she doesn't want her father to become known as the biggest war criminal in her people's history.
Right. And Shepard essentially goes... I mean, you can pretty much say, oh, we'll definitely use it, or we'll see what happens in the trial. You can't actually choose the option to not say you won't, but you can just say, let's see what happens once we're in the courtroom. And then after that conversation resolves, you do go back to the flotilla to resume the trial. And and when you get back there, the trial's already happening because they've decided you're dead, even though you've only been gone 10 minutes. It's just like, come on, guys.
The nebulous aspect of time.
Can we just get into it? Like, how much time passed? Like, y'all, you didn't tell her father was dead, and then you sent to go, like, what, recover his body? Like, people need a little bit of time to, like, process that shit. It can't have taken more than an hour or two. I don't know. It's terrible.
I don't know. It took me half an hour.
Yeah, it took me about the same. But you hear them talking as you've arrived, and you're rushing to the trial. And it's essentially, it feels very Phoenix Wright to me. If for any of the listeners who are a fan of that series, like I wanted to run into the room and yell, "Objection!" Even if it didn't apply, because, like, they're trying to resolve the trial.
Well, that's basically what Tali did.
Yeah, that's true.
Tali walks in and she goes, "Sorry, we're late."
God, she's so snarky. It's the best.
Sassy girl.
She's the best.
I love her. I love her so much. So, shepherds, what did we do?
Well, so I chose the Paragon option here to stand up for Tali without even mentioning her father by stating how well she served me, how she fought in the Battle of the Citadel. She's been fighting Geth since day one by my side, and that there is no way she would have sent these active pieces back. And if you claim to respect the captainship as much as you say you do, you'll take my word for it. And also realize who the hell we're talking about here. It's Tali. I assume you did the same thing. That's essentially what I did too. Yeah.
If I wasn't already standing, I would be standing up and clapping. Yes.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I paragoned it up.
Heck yeah.
Tali got cleared of all charges.
Yep. And then
one of the most satisfying things in all of media for me as a Tali lover. Just the best.
Well, and what I really love is that when you're talking to Tali afterwards, she thanks you for standing up for her and how she's never had anyone defend her like that and stand up for her in that way. And like my favorite line is as you're ending the conversation in saying it's no trouble at all, and that you would do it any time for her. She's like, plus it's fun to see you yell, essentially.
Yeah,
which is my favorite thing. It's just like there's the snark, there's the charm.
Mm-hmm. Before we wrap up this conversation, there is actually an additional conversation you can have with the council or with the Admiralty Board. Mm-hmm. You could say, you guys should go to war. You guys should not go to war. Fuck you guys, Tali's with me from now on. So I took the moment to say, hey guys, concept, don't go to war with the Geth. You fucked up. Let them have Rannoch. Go find another planet.
Yep. Pretty much.
See, for me, on a meta level, I felt like I had to halfway that because it's the right thing to do, but like
don't make
Tali's
your girlfriend
really
unhappy.
Well, Tali's really like strong-minded about this sort of thing, so like I don't know. It's tough, man. It's like if your wife was a libertarian, It's like, let's just not talk about politics, I guess.
I am also strong-minded about not committing genocide.
Hard same.
Oh, it sucks. It sucks. Damn it, Tali.
So, any other notes, points, comments about that mission?
Nope. I think we're good.
It's just the best. It's only the best. I love it. Getting to blow stuff up. I love using Tali's powers to like make them fight each other and all that. Yeah, it's the best. I gotta say, I love underdogs and I love women with complicated histories. I love helping them out. She was just amazing. And she's never mean to you. She's never like harsh with you. She's really sweet.
No, she's not.
If there was ever a doubt of why Jeff is on this episode now, you definitely know. Shall I move us in the direction of fandom corner, MJ?
Yes, please. We have a special fandom corner brought to us by Matt today. Go ahead, friend.
So, it turns out Dan Bull is not the only one making rap songs about Mass Effect on the internet. JT Machinima wrote a song called We Are One, which is a Mass Effect rap that spans the trilogy, talking about all three games. JT Music, or JT Machinima, who make these songs, is a creative team of... It's a two-man group. And they are John, a.k.a. Pat, and Christian, a.k.a. Skull. They grew up across the street from each other in southern Maine, and they started JT Music accidentally when they created their first music video for The Greatest Ever and posted it online to share with friends and family. And since then, they've been making music for a very long time. You can find their stuff on YouTube. We will link to the song that I'm talking about in particular, but they do a ton of different rap songs and music pieces about video games and other nerdy things. I discovered it by Googling Mass Effect rap and found more than one rap song, which is the easiest way to find something like that. But we will link to it. The song's great. I love how they use the instrumentation from the Mass Effect games, but sample it in a way that they can still put beats over it and rap to it. Not too dissimilar to what Dan Bull does for the song we use as our theme, but this takes it in kind of a more rock and roll direction, which I really like, with some melodic singing as well as rapping. And so, yeah, definitely go check it out. Again, We Are One by JT Music or JT Machinima.
So I listened to this song because, fandom corner. And my problem I find with a lot of Mass Effect rap that we discover is that it's coming from a very firmly male shep perspective.
Yeah.
I watched this music video and it was all shots of male shep, and I was just like, yeah, okay, but
Sure. I get that.
That's tough.
There's fem shep too.
Yeah, no, and I get that. I mean, I think part of it is that the singers that we've explored are both are all men who have wrote these songs, which affect that for sure. I mean, that said, I predominantly played FemShep until I played MaleShep for this playthrough, as I identify as a man and we are playing as ourselves. But the song that we named the show for, Reignite, I feel like the imagery in that one was leaned more FemShep, or it was at least a more even smattering, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I feel like it did have a little bit more of a feminine tone, if only because of the voice that we associate with the song.
Sure.
But, I don't know, I feel like there's more room for representation in that one. That's my opinion, though.
Oh, yeah, I don't disagree. I think, again, when you have an experience that's so highly customizable, if you identify as a man, you're going to write from a male perspective, if you're putting yourself in the shoes of the character. Whereas if you're just writing... But that said, the way this song is structured, it is talking about the events, and so there was more room to put a female or non-binary perspective for sure. I think, again, with something like this, if you're putting yourself in the shoes, it's hard. But I totally get where you're coming from. I'm not necessarily excusing it. I'm just adding additional insight into why they may have leaned that way. But you're definitely not wrong.
Yeah, no. I wish that since the lyrics aren't very gender specific,
right,
they could have shown different versions of Shepard.
Yeah.
But then that's also a marketing thing, because the footage that was available to them was only of male Shep. So that could also be why.
Yeah, I mean, until the third game, the advertising was predominantly leaning towards male Shep. And even for the third game, even though they put a canonical default femme Shep that was wholly original, the game still leaned more on the shoulders of the male Shep perspective, at least for marketing. So that's probably part of it too, for sure.
I really think it's important to talk about the visuals. Don't always have to. I mean, everybody knows this with music videos, but the visuals can be more representative. Just because you rap from a very personal thing, or this is how I played the game, you can do a lot with visuals to expand that out. I think it's a good criticism.
For sure. Yeah, totally.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Matt, for bringing that.
You're welcome.
Okay, before we move on to wrapping up, we got an email.
Email.
So this is from David L. And it says, "Hey, Matt and MJ, I recently found your podcast about 3 weeks ago and love the way both of you discuss the game and bring up how your views on certain characters or missions have changed as you have become the people you are. And as someone who has also had gender and sexuality issues growing up, it is a viewpoint that in a lot of cases I share, but have not seen mentioned elsewhere. I've started a new playthrough to go along with the podcast and have now caught up to where you are. There are a couple of points from earlier parts of the series that I did want to mention. First, I almost always sacrificed Caden on Vermeer, and while for a long time it became just the thing I did, as after the first couple of playthroughs when I was exploring the different choices, later times I just never spoke with Caden. However, during this one, I gave Caden another chance and was reminded of what my big problem was the first time. I normally play as FemShep, so talking to Caden has its own issues due to the way the game handles romances, with being nice to someone in conversation often coming off as, "I want to get into your space pants." But at a point, both Caden and Ashley no longer have anything to say, so they get stuck with their own versions of being in the middle of calibrations. And Caden's concludes with, "There will be time for personal debriefings later." Now perhaps I'm interpreting the line incorrectly, but it always came off as a bit of a cringy flirt. So when I've told him that I'm not interested and he still says the line, I get vibes of, does this guy understand that no means no? Jack is one of my favorite characters in the entire series, and the only romance option I've taken when playing as a male shepherd. While the writing and voice acting of the character is very good, she is also the first character, and until Andromeda, the only one, to have any diversity with sex. Each other option, no matter what the relationship growth may have been, makes sex feel like a reward for getting to the final mission. While Jack also gets the night before the end of mission scene, the fact that she also has the option for Shepard to have a moment with her early-ish in the story, however, if you take this, then she won't really talk to you much for the rest of the game, plays into her story, where Shepard becomes just another person to use her biotics and body for their own benefits. It also, to me, makes what happens later mean more than with other people. While she is scantily clad in her default outfit, it feels less objectifying than Miranda, as you don't get the half-assed screenshots regardless of your Shepard's gender, sexuality, or relationship status like you do with Miranda.
They did Miranda dirty. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay. You're right. They did.
I love that actress, and she got screwed. I'm sorry. Go on.
No, you're fine. Jack feels more like her saying, "I'm comfortable in this, and if you don't like it, that's a you problem and not a me problem." Finally, on to the current mission. Garrus's loyalty has one really nice feature that, as far as I can tell, only happens in this mission. Depending on if you took the Paragon or Renegade conversation options in ME1, then if you then change during Garrus's loyalty mission, he'll call you out on it. I don't recall this happening at any other point in this game or in Mass Effect 3. Yes, characters might discuss the action you took in the moment, but there doesn't seem to be any other case where they call back to your past choices and how that one goes against everything you stood for in the past. Thank you for your time in reading this, and hopefully it wasn't too much of a ramble. And once more, loving the podcast and looking forward to hearing your views on the rest of the Mass Effect series.
Aw, thanks, David. That was great.
Thanks, David. That was really nice.
I appreciate your reaching out.
David raised a really good point.
And sharing your thoughts on the different characters. We try and give as much of a diverse discussion as we can about each character, but the reality is our own gender, our own bias, our own experience is going to color those conversations. MJ and I talk about that all the time. Like, male authority figures who shoot me down or talk down to me feels less demeaning as a male character than, of course, it would as a female character, especially based on, some of the cultural stereotypes that happen. And so, bringing up this information and pointing out how these conversations shaped your view of these characters is really important. So thank you for sharing.
I think that's part of why I'm angrier than Matt is during this game.
I mean, sure. And what's funny is, like, playing as my FemShep, I never noticed it because I'm still a man playing that character. And even though I adore...
Right, you're just dipping in.
Right.
It's like pretending to be homeless for a day or something. It's nothing like having to come from a place of always having to just take it and put up with it.
Yeah, for sure.
To like, just, seeing what that's like, briefly. Although I shouldn't speak for women. Like, it just, that's what it sounds like from afar.
Right.
No, that is a good read on the situation. So our next episode is going to be The Price of Revenge, which is Zaid's loyalty mission. We don't have any guests for that one. It's just me and Matt.
Yep, because we're the only ones who actually like Zaid, and so there it is.
I mean, do we like Zaid,
stand that
or have we
guy.
just committed to doing
I
this?
burned him so bad. I was like, you're a bad person, and I don't want to help you.
So, like...
Spoiler alert.
So, like, I don't dislike Zaid's voice acting and line. Like, I like him as a character to the point that I like how the voice actor delivers. I like how he's designed. He looks like a cool kind of military badass. But yeah, his caricature falls a little flat and often seems crueler than necessary. So we'll get more into that next week when we do his loyalty mission.
Yeah.
Until then,
yeah.
Jeff, tell the internet where they can find you.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm at El Jefe Tacoma on Twitter. You can find my website where I put a lot of stuff. It's awesomepod.squarespace.com. And, check out the War for the Tower at warforthetower.com. That's it.
If you like what you heard here, you can follow us on social media at ReignitePod on Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram, Facebook.com/ReignitePod, or send us an email at reignitepod@gmail.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcatcher if you can. Be like Jeff and write us a review, because then we'll read it on the podcast.
It's true. And it'll help us find more listeners who will also enjoy this podcast, we hope.
I should update that review, by the way. Like, that was like a year or two ago.
Thank you. That's very nice. Any positive review is helpful, but we appreciate that. We're also members of the Certain Point of View Network. You can visit certainpov.com for more nerdy podcasts, each with a unique point of view. You can also find a permanent invite link to our Discord server where we talk about this podcast and other podcasts on the network. Certain Point of View, the podcast itself, is wrapping up. It's in its final days now that the Skywalker trilogy, or 9 movies, I don't know what you call that, is wrapping up, and they're moving on. Those hosts are not leaving the network, but they're moving on to new shows. So you definitely want to check that out and not miss those final episodes of our Star Wars, or sometimes Star Wars podcast. MJ, why don't you plug the stuff you do?
I do lots of stuff. Going off of what Matt was just talking about with a Certain POV network, I was on an episode of Another Pass with Case Aiken talking about something very near and dear to our hearts, Christmas movies. So definitely check me out on A Cinderella Story Christmas Wish. I also do a podcast called The Circle of Friendship, where we talk about The Circle of Magic books by Tamara Pierce. You can find that at COF Pod on Twitter. And I also do another one called the Rob Thomas, no, not that one, Robcast, where we talk about the works of Rob Thomas. No, not that one. You can find that at Not That Robcast on Twitter.
I am
Matt,
actually on the most recent episode of Not That Robcast, I believe, as of when you're hearing this. And I got to talk about Lord of the Bling, one of actually my favorite episodes of Veronica Mars. And so I'm very excited for y'all to hear that, to be on MJ's other podcast. One down, one to go. But that one involves reading books, which I'm never going to do. I also do a ton of stuff. You can find me streaming at twitch.tv/DJ_Stormageddon, although I've been on a hiatus for the tail end of 2019, but I'll be back in force in 2020. However, I also do a bunch of other podcasts. I do a bi-weekly interview series called Crash Chords Autographs, where I interview musicians, comedians, burlesque performers, photographers, pretty much anyone in the art space who wants to talk to me. I also do 2 other shows on this very network. Screen Snark with my awesome co-host Rachel Quirky Shank, which is a movie and TV podcast where we have a guest each week and we talk about the most recent thing we've watched in the vein of TV, movies, documentaries, whatever. And then, of course, my last podcast is Fun and Games with Jeff Moonen. It is a podcast where we talk more general about gaming. As of when this episode comes out, our most recent episode will have been our year in review, followed by whatever we're doing in 2020. So definitely go check out all of those podcasts and the Certain POV Network. Feel free to follow me, DJ_Stormageddon on Twitter. I post all the nonsense that I do right there.
Thank you to Christina Red Spinks for our It's Okay to Be a Marshmallow t-shirt on Redbubble featuring our favorite marshmallow, Kaden Alenko. You can find more of their work at KS Does Art on Instagram. We'd also like to thank David Boyle for designing our logo, which you can also get on a shirt through Redbubble, and Dan Bull for letting us use the Mass Effect rap for our theme music. I'm MJ. And I am Matt, aka Stormageddon.
And I'm Jeff Richardson. We're done here. Did I say it right? Did I do it?
Perfect.
Close enough.
You're listening to Reignite. I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite podcast on the Citadel.
Hi. My name is Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon, and I'm the host of Crash Chords Autographs, which is a bi-weekly podcast in which I interview entertainers all over New York and more, from musicians to magicians to comedians to burlesque performers and anything you can really think of. Anyone who's willing to talk, I've had them on my show. You can find it on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, and more. You can also follow us on our website, which is crashchords.com. And remember, music is life, and life is good.